for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, please.
Alderman O'Brien is present. Alderman Gregg.
Present.
Alderman Moran. Alderman Thibodeau. Here. Alderman GOV. Alderman Lopez. Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clemmons.
Here.
Alderman Senate.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Here.
Alderman Clee. Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Wilshire.
I'm here.
We have 10 aldermen present.
Thank you. Also in attendance this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis. As is customary for these hearings, I'm going to turn this meeting over to the Chair of the Budget Review Committee, Alderman Dowd.
Okay, this evening we have 10 public hearings to hear before we go into budget. And before we get into the first public hearing, I'm going to give the mayor and the city CFO a chance to speak on some of these. I'm also going to ask that when you come up and speak, that you be very succinct. We have 10 of these to go through tonight, and with the weather conditions, we want to get through this as quickly as possible. And if the person in front of you agrees with what you said, please just come up and say you agree with the previous speaker. If you get off topic, I'm going to have to ask you to sit down. So your discussions have to be succinct with the resolution that we're talking about at the time and nothing else. Right now, I'll let the mayor speak on these resolutions.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I wanted to say first that we're here based upon the fact that we delivered the budget that we said we would. We passed a budget that was a maintained services budget with a higher tax increase than we all had hoped, we all would have wanted, 6%, but it is what we, or 5.9%, but it is what we anticipated because of the increased drivers of costs, such as health care, such as the busing contract for the schools, such as special ed, electricity costs, and many other things that went up much more than the rate of inflation. And in addition to that, we developed a surplus that enables us to undertake some additional or meet some additional needs. As you will hear from the CFO, Dawn Enright, we have a fund balance of over $40 million, and we have an additional $31 million of the fund balance, and we are anticipating that we use $8 million of that, which will reduce that to $23 million, or a total of $63 million. Now, some of the items that, and CFO Enright will go through the details of that for you. But some of the items that we are talking about is, first, certainly the special ed expenses need to be met. The school department, you will hear from them regarding how these costs have escalated, the problems of hiring special ed teachers and the necessity of contracting out that service because of the legal obligation to provide education, special ed, to our special ed students. And that, you see from R25-215, is a $3 million amount. A couple more that are significant are the appropriation for the Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. That's $1.5 million. You will recall that we budgeted $2.5 million, but in order to make the equipment purchases that we need this year, we need to allocate another $1.5 million to that purpose. Number three, the third rather significant item, more than $1 million, is the $1.5 million proposed for the so-called benefits self-insurance fund. Now, I think we all realize that the city is self-insured when it comes to health benefits for city employees, but we need to maintain a large enough balance in that account to meet the insurance needs or the costs of health care as they arise during the course of the year. Now, we have seen our health costs are going up double digits. We have seen what has happened across the state with other entities of government who are suffering even worse than we are. You might have noticed that the school care, which is a nonprofit that provides health insurance to, I think, school districts across the state, that went up 12%, and many communities were asked for additional funds beyond the money that they had budgeted because of all the difficulties that school care fund is encountering with rising health care costs. But you will hear more of the details of that, I think, from Director Cummings as that public hearing is called. And then there are a couple of items related to the issues that the Board of Aldermen discussed with the downtown businesses over the course of a couple of meetings, specifically the continuation of the police officers doing the downtown patrols, which have proven to be very effective, and the clean team that would help to clean up some of the do the necessary cleanup to keep the downtown clean as a result of some of the unhoused individuals that populate the downtown. And finally, there is money allocated or suggested for the resource center that we've talked about on a number of different occasions. So as you will hear as we go through the public hearings, each of the departments that would be involved with these expenditures will give you the details, but I think that, Mr. Chair, is an overview, and I will turn now to Ms. Enright to just talk about the fund balance and where we are financially.
Ms. Enright, you can come up and take one of the seats up here, so you don't have to stand.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. Dawn Enright, Chief Financial Officer. Before you this evening, you have 10 resolutions for supplemental appropriations, each for specific and unique purposes, totaling $8 million for appropriations. If approved, these appropriations will be funded from the anticipated June 30th, 2025 assigned fund balance, which is expected to be $31.5 million. After passage of the 8.1 assigned fund balance, the balance will be approximately $23.4 million. The unassigned fund balance is anticipated to be about $41.1 million, which is 11.4% of the general fund operating FY26 budget. The requirement within our guidelines is 10%. We are carrying 11.4. The rating agencies look upon those amounts very favorably. They like to see between 15 and 20% in total fund balance, assigned and unassigned. If we waver from that, they always question why it's going down. It shows that we have strong financial stability when we are able to sustain that amount. If these get approved, we will still be within the favorable level of fund balance. The other thing that always comes up when we talk about supplemental appropriations is in terms of the spending cap space. With this supplemental appropriations that we're looking at this evening, right now we are under the cap by $14.9 million. So we have the capacity to still supplementally appropriate $14.9 million. In front of you, you only have $8 million, which would bring the cap space down to $6.8 million if all were approved. I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have in relation to this.
Do any of the aldermen at this point have a question? Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. One of the items that is before us is for the lead paint. It seems like the feds are kind of welshing on us a little bit with the money appropriated. If the feds do repay us at a later date, we can accept that cash and then put it back into the supplemental funds. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I could address that. So I think Director Sullivan is here and can address that as well, but we don't anticipate needing that money, actually needing it at this time because of the fact that the government shutdown is over, and therefore we will not seek those funds and would just ask you to kill that particular resolution.
So, follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So you're asking to veto out,
We'll withdraw it, or you can
indefinitely postpone? or
indefinitely
something?
postpone it or whatever.
Okay.
You know, do that when it comes
Thank
to
you,
budget.
Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions from the alderman? Alderman Clemmons?
Just to clarify one point, the assigned and unassigned combined is what totals the 11.4% above the recommendation, or is it just the unassigned?
It is only the unassigned fund balance
Okay.
that is the 11.4.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Don. All right, so we'll start the public hearings. The first is R-25-214, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $59,499.98 of unanticipated revenue from the United States Internal Revenue Service into a Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. Is there anyone here that's going to give us an overview of that?
Hello.
Hey,
For a quick review,
name and,
I apologize, Doria Brown. I work for the City of Nashua as the energy manager.
okay.
No address, except for 229 Main Street. The city has received $59,499.98 in rebate funding from the Inflation Reduction Act's Clean Vehicle Program for the purchase of 8 electric vehicles between the years of 2023 and 2024. Once accepted, these funds would go back to the city's capital equipment reserve fund, where it will help support more purchases of vehicles for the city's fleet.
Okay. Any questions from the alderman from Dorian? Nope, thank you. So now I'll open up R-25-214, testimony in favor. Seeing none, testimony in opposition.
Okay, since this is a public hearing, not one of your little committee meetings. I'll start off by saying I have some questions about this.
You give us your name and address, please?
Fred T. Boom, 24 Cheyenne Drive. So this is anticipated from what?
This is money that was rebated from the government when we bought electric vehicles. They had a rebate program. We applied for it, we got the money, and it's money that comes back to us. We're not expending it. We're taking it and putting it in the capital reserve fund.
Okay, I understand this comes from the sale of electric vehicles that ordinarily got taxed, but the city does not get taxed. I understand there's a special provision in the IRS code that even though the community does not get taxed, it still gets a rebate. However, have you received a rebate?
Doria, we've gotten the money, right?
We have not received the rebate yet, but we have, I apologize. Can I call Mike with you?
Yeah, you can stand
Thank
there,
you.
no worries.
We have not received the rebate yet, but we have received approval for the funds from the IRS.
So they're on the
Okay, given
way.
the situation, funds can anytime be canceled by the current administration. Until you have the money in hand, you do not have the money in hand. So why are you jumping ahead with this particular supplemental appropriation? You should wait till you actually have the money and then transfer it into fund balance. That's the normal way these things are done. I don't know why you're doing a supplemental appropriation. It takes 2/3 of a vote. It takes a public hearing. I don't know why you do a supplemental appropriation when we just got through with a 6% tax increase. And as far as the cap goes, that's a completely erroneous calculation. It's currently in the review in Superior Court. The main thing on this resolution, you should stop it and hold it until you get the money in hand and then decide to put it into fund balance. And then the annual appropriation process, when that's supposed to happen, you're supposed to have only one annual appropriation unless you have a very special reason for a supplemental. Supplemental requires a 2/3 vote in special public hearing. It's a special situation. Previous administration before Donchus rarely went over $1 million over the entire year of supplemental. The Streeter, there was none. On the Lozo, I think the most was like half
Okay,
$500,000.
you're getting off topic, and we'll take your comments into consideration when it comes before us for a vote.
Sir, this is a public hearing. You're not
And
about
I
to-
explained that we have 10 to go through tonight, and that we were going to limit the comments to the resolution at hand, and was told by legal that we can do that, so please keep your comments exactly to this resolution.
It says in the proceedings, you cannot restrict the comments by the public. This is a public hearing, not a committee meeting, Mr. Chairman. And I did not schedule 10 public hearings in one evening.
Anyone else in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Paula Johnson, Alderman 5-elect, going to be the ward alderman. And I look forward to sitting with all of you on this board. And I think this was a horrible way you treated Mr. T-Boom, and I think we need to start having some conduct in this chamber. I agree with him on this. You got $59 million of money that hasn't even entered the city by check.
It's 59,000, not 59 million.
59,000, excuse me, $59,000. I mean, we're putting the cart before the horse. We've got something, we're talking about something we don't even have in hand. I think you should probably indefinitely postpone this piece of R-25-214. And I'm going to say this, and when I sit on this board, I'm going to have respect for the people who sit in the audience, because you know what? My taxes just went up 6%, and I'm not happy. And I'm seeing how all this money on supplemental budgets here. A budget is a budget. This all should have been put in the budget, not after the fact. And I'll tell you, where I work, I had a lot of people today saying to me they can't wait to see me on the board because this is nonsense, absolute nonsense. A budget is a budget. Just like I make a budget in my house, and if I can't afford it, I can't buy it. But what's coming before this board tonight, this is absolutely outrageous that these issues, money that's needed, was never put in a budget. Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition?
Good evening, Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I've got some questions here. Why did you schedule 10 of these resolutions in one night, only to tell us if we come out, we're going to be clipped off, told to be quiet, sit down, be focused and direct?
Nobody told you that.
Schedule 5 of them if you're that concerned about your hours and time. But you know what? You're making $9,000 a year. You're elected to do this job. And what you really are telling us is, get out, we don't want to hear from you. And I'm really concerned that you just stated that Attorney Bolton, counsel, I don't know if it was Corporation Counsel, told you that you could put limitations on this public hearing. Under what regulation were you given that? Because when you opened the meeting up and said that, I want to know what the regulation is or the law that permits you to do that. Do you have the citation?
No. Under his counsel, we decided we would not do that.
You would not do what?
Limit your time. I didn't give you a time limit.
You said it has to be very specific to this topic.
It does have to be specific to the resolution.
Okay, and where is that written? What is the law that says that in this hearing?
I would suggest you ask legal.
Anyone here?
No.
Okay, so, that's a problem. Regarding these assigned fund balance and unassigned fund balance that the CFO just talked about.
Please keep your comments specific to this particular resolution.
Well, there'll be no place for me to ask this because you didn't allow us to ask comments when she was up here. She got to service you, but not us. Now, my question is very general. What is the difference between the unassigned fund balance and the assigned fund balance? How does one get created over the other? I just want to understand. Unassigned is at 40 million and is used to create the amount that we have to be looked at appropriately when we go to bond, of having enough money to float emergencies, I would imagine. What is an unassigned or unanticipated fund balance versus an assigned fund balance? What's the difference?
Mayor, do you want to talk to it?
The unassigned is just a general surplus that is held pursuant to the requirements of the ordinance and pursuant to the desires of the bonding agencies. And it's intended to really be held just for indefinitely. The assigned fund balance, as the name suggests, assigned, is for unanticipated liabilities. So we began accumulating this money to help us with things like you see before us, that we wanted to, in other words, we accumulated money in advance to meet needs like those you see. For example, if special ed goes way over, there's some money we can use to meet that expense without having to go into the so-called unassigned, which is there and necessary to meet the
Bonding
minimum required by
requirements.
the ordinance.
Okay, and does the unassigned money or unanticipated fund balance, that 40 million, does that come from extra bond money? Or is that just money that gets pushed into there to make certain you meet that percentage amount that the bond agency is going to look for?
It did not come from bonded money, it's just money that's been accumulated
Okay.
cash over the years.
Okay, so you really try to sit that close to the 11% or 15, and then you work off that 30, which is there to deal with emergencies that come up during the year that you want to address. Is that correct?
I mean,
All right, I appreciate you giving me an answer to that. as we go through, I'm going to speak to these, but I'm going to share that $8 million of, additional funding that's come up to do projects like this. I do have some comments I want to make on specific ones of these. Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? Seeing no one, anyone else in favor? Seeing no one? Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none? I'll close the public hearing on Resolution R-25-214 at 7:26 PM. And open the public hearing on Resolution R-25-215 at 7:26 PM. R-25-215 is relative to the supplemental appropriation of $3 million of assigned fund balance into Fund 7074 Special Education Expendable Trust Fund.
All right, good evening. Crystal DeGray, Chief Operating Officer, School District.
Mario Randrade, Superintendent of Schools.
All right, thank you, Mayor, for the outline related to the supplemental money in front of you tonight related to special education. So as folks hopefully are aware, over the last several years, the Nashua School District has seen significant increases related to special education, whether it is contract services, out-of-district tuition. A lot of these are expenses that unfortunately at times are variable costs and unanticipated. As a result, we have seen ESSER funding diminish, which means we need to go ahead and absorb these costs more frequently in our operating budget. In conjunction with the city, as a proactive approach, our solution would be to go ahead and ask for $3 million of a supplemental transfer into our trust fund for special education. The purpose of these funds would be to possibly address some of the current year funds, but primarily to go ahead and focus on future special education expenses for years to come. Hopefully that would drive down the increases that the school district will be coming forward with. Dr. Andre, anything I missed?
No, great job summarizing it.
Are there any of the board members that have any questions before they? Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you had said that this would be for future special ed costs as well, not just this year. So if some of it's future, couldn't that be put into next year's budget? Like, why do it this way, I guess? I'm just trying to clarify why you're doing the chunk all right now.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. So my understanding is the trust fund is utilized for unanticipated funds. As of current year, we are definitely seeing substantial increases. I gave a presentation to the Board of Ed back on September 9th and more recently in November to show what some of those increases have been. I am hopeful that we as a school district potentially needs that money for future years. My understanding is there's some funds available right now, and that is why we're coming forward again with the partnership with city to ask for some of those funds. I can reassure you that from a budget standpoint, we absolutely will not only be looking at operating budget in fiscal year 27, but also our special revenue, special education accounts as well.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. So, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, so this is coming out of the blue, and if you don't know the answer, I understand. But, I was wondering, since you're here and you're talking about special education, can you clarify for us, I'm under the impression that the funding that has come from the federal government and the state government, has been reduced, and part of the reason we're, part of the reason we're in a shortfall as far as special education is concerned is because of that. But I hear the governor and Senator Avard, talking about how much money the state has increased in what they pay for special education. So, can you clarify, has the state been increasing the money? And if so, why are we talking about a shortfall if they're increasing the money? So, I don't know if you can answer that, but.
Let me start, and I'll let Dr. Andre to add some clarity if needed. So a couple of things to answer your question. From a state adequacy aid standpoint, we have seen an increase over the last several years. With that being said, it's been a challenge to truly find special educators. It's been a challenge to find some of the support staff. Therefore, we have had to contract service some of the teachers, paraeducators, et cetera. With that being said, that comes with a substantial cost. From a financial standpoint, we as a district can move our wages to offset some of those contract service costs, but unfortunately, it's not a one-for-one ratio. With that being said, I think we as a district are also stepping back to say, where can we potentially make sure we're cutting costs, but also from a federal standpoint, we're meeting the needs of our students in front of us. The other piece I would add is, unfortunately, we have seen a drastic increase in our student population who are identified as special needs or special education, and our enrollment has drastically dropped. Because of those several factors, we're seeing a substantial increase related to special education.
The increase in Medicaid reimbursement?
Yep. Yeah, good point, sorry. So Medicaid reimbursement as well, over the years has decreased and diminished. We as a district, and since I stepped in as COO, have made an effort to be bringing as much money back into the district as possible. So over the years, Medicaid reimbursement has been anywhere as low as 65% up to 92%. So that is a variable reimbursement as well.
So just to piggyback on that, so you are correct, and if we talk to the mayor, or we talk to the commissioner, on paper, the revenue stream has increased from the state. So we have to be really careful on saying the state's not supporting us, because they can argue back to say, we've seen increases. To Mr. Gray's point, the revenues aren't keeping up with the expenses, and I hate to say students are an expense, but like that's just, it's not balancing out. It's increasing very quickly. So the amount of reimbursement coming in, whether it's Medicaid or from the state, is not keeping up. I said this last spring during our budget presentation, we had 100 new referrals in district for intensive needs programs. So it's not just reading IEPs or math IEPs. We're asking for students who might require one-to-one nursing. We're going through a situation just this week that might require special transportation outside of for a student, that it's $6,000 per month to transport one kid. That's coming in December. So you do the math and you add a couple more kids, those are some of the unanticipated costs coming through that's hard to budget. So we do our best of it. But really this act is working. I want to thank the city. We meet every Thursday and we talk about some possibilities. And this is a proactive approach to offset some of the increases to our operational budget year over year. But to have that room that we don't turn into another district, that mid-year we're talking about major cuts or stopping other services. So I think this is a really proactive approach to offset some of the costs. And at the end of the day, our responsibility is to our students to make sure that they get what they want. And so again, I think this is a good way to be working in collaboration with the city to be proactive to support our students and our families.
All set, Alderman Jettie, or?
I just have one
Follow-up?
follow-up, if I may. So just to clarify, the city's obligation to, provide these special services for special needs students, including, you mentioned the transportation to, if a student, if we can't service the student here, we have to send them someplace else and we have to transport them. Is that a choice that we make? or is that required
So
somehow?
it's through an IEP process, so it's in collaboration with families to really look at the data to provide the least restrictive learning environment for the student. So sometimes it could be in Nashua, or it could be in a different location, so it could be out of district. But it is a choice through the IEP process, in which becomes, once that IEP, the individual education plan is signed, it now becomes a binding document.
Okay, but is that imposed upon us by law?
So there is federal law around IDEA on how we provide services for students with disabilities. So yes, it is a federal mandate at that point.
All set?
Thank you.
Just one other thing, if somebody comes into the district tomorrow that you're unaware of and they require this funding, we have to provide it right away.
That's correct.
The other thing is the non-public schools in Nashua, if they have an IEP person, we have to cover that expense as well.
That is correct.
So not just the public schools. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. I see that the money is going to be transferred into Fund Number 7074, which, from everything that I see, has a balance of $233,000 in it. We also have Fund 2257, which is a special revenue fund that has over $3.5 million of it. $3.5 million, sorry, as the end of October. Could someone please help me understand the difference between the special revenue fund that has $3.5 million that's titled Special Ed Local and the expendable trust fund, and why we couldn't use some of that money?
Absolutely. So the special education, special revenue account is truly to be utilized for special education services, contract services, transportation. We did a substantial increase, I think it was about $1.2, $1.3 million being spent in that special revenue account for this fiscal year. For future fiscal years of FY27, I am going to propose that we actually increase that because, to your point, there is a fund balance in there. I can't guarantee at this time that we're not going to come forward and ask for a supplemental appropriation for this current year related to some of that fund balance that is sitting there. But that special revenue account does hold all of the revenue that comes in for our Signs of Learning program, our Brentwood program. My understanding is the trust fund money has always been looked at as like that emergency account. My suggestion was, in partnership with the city, was to go ahead and move the money into the trust fund because that money does roll over year. So I think based off of the cost we are currently seeing right now related to special education for out-of-district tuition and contract services, as of a week ago, we were roughly about $2.5 million we were looking at. So my fear is if we do go ahead and use all of the money that is sitting in this special revenue account, then there is nothing for future years. I think it's going to be a conjunction of operating budget, special revenue, and trust fund. Sorry, Dr. Andre.
If you want to talk about not creating a structural deficit.
Oh, yes. Yep. So to Dr. Andre's point, what I'm trying to ensure we are not doing is creating a deficit, a structural deficit. Special ed cost has drastically increased over the last several years. I truly do believe that because of the ESSER funds, it kind of masks some of this, and this is why we're seeing a lot more coming into operating, contract services, special revenue, and the trust fund.
All said, Alderman Sullivan?
Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
So now I'll call for testimony in favor of R25-215. Seeing none, I'll ask for testimony in opposition.
Well, we're going to be up here 10 times, this second time. $3 million. Let me first start following up on Ms. Arlana's question about assigned fund balance. who assigns the assigned fund balance?
I would try to answer, but I don't really understand the question, in the sense that, well,
Let me rephrase the question.
money goes into that based upon a vote of the Board of Aldermen. So, if there is $40 million in there at the beginning of the year, the Board of Aldermen may vote at the end to increase the unassigned fund balance from 40 million to 40,500,000 or something. But over the years, it has been accumulated. And I believe that you as an alderman, weren't you part of creating the minimum assigned fund balance, unassigned fund balance? I could be wrong about that, but it's certainly a good fiscal practice. It's like having a strong balance sheet as a private company, and the ordinance requires 10%, and the bond rating agencies like to see more.
When I was an alderman, we didn't call it unassigned fund balance and assigned fund balance. We only had one fund balance. And that was called
You did not have unassigned at the time.
was called
Excuse me, you did
designated.
not have assigned at the time, but the unassigned was something that you helped to establish as a legal requirement for the city.
Exactly. We only had one balance called the designated. But the question was not that. The question was, who assigns the assigned fund balance as opposed to the fact that you have an unassigned fund balance, which nobody assigns. It's just a fund that takes any excess revenue or any excess sources of revenue from whatever source, that goes into unassigned fund balance.
It's also.
However, your assigned fund balance gets assigned. So the question is, who does the assignment?
You mean when money within the assigned fund balance needs to be expended, who decides that? Is that the question?
No. The question is simply this. You now have two fund balances. One is called an unassigned fund balance. I think she said it was $40 million in there. There's an assigned fund balance, there's $31 million in there. And my question was, I understand what an unassigned fund balance is. It takes all unexpended revenues, unexpected revenues, binds up in an unassigned fund balance. My question was not that. We are talking about taking all kinds of money out of the assigned fund balance. So my question is, who assigns the money into the assigned fund balance to be assigned? As an example, assigned to special education.
That would be the Board of Aldermen. I mean, it's all, the money like this doesn't move around or is not allocated or in any way obligated without a vote of the Board of Aldermen.
I'm not talking about that. The fact,
I don't get
the
the question.
appropriation is happening tonight if you vote to approve this. I'm talking about excess money coming into the assigned fund balance. How does it get into the assigned fund balance?
It's a decision made at the end of the year. And
By whom?
the Board of Aldermen.
Not that I know
Through
of.
actions of the Board of Aldermen.
I've never seen an action of the Board of Aldermen saying, take a vote on assigned fund balance.
Well, we're kind of beyond tonight, but we can.
No, we're not, sir.
we
It's
can
talking
show
about
you-
taking $3 million out of the assigned fund balance. And I want to know who established the assigned fund balance.
Board of
If
Aldermen.
you don't have an
I get-
answer, let me move on.
I did give an answer to the Board of Aldermen.
The
That's
Board of
answer.
Aldermen assigned the assigned fund balance, is that true?
Do you have comments relative to being against us giving the money to special education
Yeah,
students?
first of all, because it comes out of an assigned fund balance. I don't know. So the next question is the assigned fund balance a single fund, or is it assignments made? Like, this is special education, this is capital
It's
reserves.
a single fund.
It's a single fund.
Single fund.
Okay. I didn't know that. Now, let's get to the question. We are barely 5 months into the new budget. Approved the budget before 1 July, took effect 1 July. We're now in December, July, August, September, October, November. You're 5 months into the new budget, and already the school department is coming in with a $3 million overage request over what they've budgeted. So my first question on this particular budget is, how much was funded in the annual budget for special education?
I don't think they came in and said that they had overspent. This money is set aside in anticipation of expenditures that happen all the time, and so that they don't overrun, and you end up in a situation like there are in Claremont.
Mr. Chairman, have you ever heard of an annual budget? The annual budget is supposed to establish the need for the following year in total, not for 5 months of the following year, not for 7 months, for the entire 12 months of the following year. You don't come in 5 months into the new year and say, I need more money. That's completely uncontrolled budgeting, especially on top of a 6% tax increase. So my question is, how much was budgeted in special education during the annual budget? A very simple question. So we can see how much, percentage-wise, this $3 million represents out of that annual budget 5 months into the annual year. It's a reasonable question. Shouldn't it take a lot of negativism on your part, Mr. Chairman? Now, who's got an answer? Principal here. Let's have some answers.
Mr. Gray?
Okay.
No, he's got it.
All right, so I believe the question at hand is how much did we budget in special education? So for fiscal year '26, we went ahead and budgeted $1.7 million in our operating budget related to special education contract services. We went ahead and budgeted $500,000 in our special revenue account, totaling $2.2 million of a budget. Based off of our student needs, what is required in an IEP, and the students that are currently identified, we are already seeing roughly $4 million coming in for contract services. I just want to clarify, I didn't stand up here and say that the $3 million would be used for this year. I am hopeful it will be for future years. One other piece of information, so out of district is the other cost. Let me give you that so we have a full picture. Fiscal year '26 operating budget for special education out of district tuition. We went ahead and budgeted $6.2 million. Special revenue out of district tuition. We went ahead and budgeted $526 million, which is a total of $6.7 million. I just want to share that last year's out-of-district tuition cost was $7.2 million, and last year's budget was $6.2 million.
Okay, thank you. So you're telling me you got $2.2 million you budgeted for special revenue funding? $2.2 million. Not out-of-district stuff, just special revenue. That's what we're talking about here, right?
Special ed.
Special ed. We're not talking about out-of-district stuff. We're talking about special ed, right?
Well, when we talk, for clarity, when we talk special education, the expendable trust has special education contract services and has special education out-of-district tuition. So it is all costs related to special education.
So the total budget is $8 million?
No, I would tell you your total budget in operating and special revenue was close, yep, 8.8 million.
8 million. So and you're the chief financial officer for the school department, right?
Yes.
I recognize you. So you're telling me that 5 months into your program, you want $3 million more, which is almost, what, 40% of your budget?
No, that's inaccurate.
That's inaccurate. 3 million out of 8 million, that's
That's-
40%.
But the request is to set up education trust fund. We are not requesting the money to offset the cost for this year. This is a potential of future years. So we're not saying we're in a deficit in these lines right now. I want to be crystal clear.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
So-
I wasn't clear at all.
Well, that's where the aspect of, so we're monitoring our costs, but this is, again, a proactive approach to offset. So if we, to your aspect, if the $3 million does not go into this ed trust, and we want to move things next year to the operating budget, right? So that'll be an increase over and on top of whatever I'm going to ask. So instead of asking for, the mayor's guideline says 3% coming in, I might be asking for a 9% increase to operating. Is that what you're asking us to do?
Yeah.
To come in with a 9% increase?
No, I'm
I just want to be clear, just.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah,
your
so,
point.
so this is a trust fund to offset any kind of, operational, and again, being proactive on variables that come in. So this is not saying we are so far behind in our budget this year that we're not managing it. This is a proactive approach to look at multiple year funding or an account to offset unrealistic.
I got it.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that
So-
Mr. Gray's doing a wonderful job in forecasting.
So are we all set? We have a lot of things to cover tonight.
Absolutely not. She just had clarified what this is about, which is certainly not in the resolution, okay? It doesn't say a thing about being proactive. It doesn't say a thing about what you need now. This is a supplemental appropriation. This requires a 2/3 vote. It requires a public hearing. It's a special situation. This is not a place where you do proactive funding in the following years. Where you do proactive funding for following years, Mr. Superintendent, is during the annual budget process. So, whatever you need now as an emergency, you would approve. Anything else that may be whatever the proactivity is, that holds to the annual budget. And on top of that, you really don't do it because it affects the spending cap. And this is absolutely out of control budgeting.
Anyone else in opposition?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. So, okay, I got a lot of clarifying information there. Does the school district ever have a fund balance at the end of the year? Can anyone answer that?
I'm sure Mr. Gray can, but they always do because you never want to end up in a negative.
Right.
And you can't, at that size budget to the closest dollar. So they always have money left at the end. Usually in budgets like we've had lately, not very much.
I know, I thought I remember last year there was what was the balance last year?
That's irrelevant to this particular resolution.
No, actually, you don't let me complete my thought because you're a narrow thinker, and don't interrupt me. My thought is this: if they have fund balances at the end of the year, why don't we wait and let them see what the year-end fund balance is and fund their expendable trust fund? Why are we doing it now? Use your balance at the end. They're already telling us that they don't need the money now. It's just a rainy day fund in case they need the money. Their special education population is going up. So create it from their balance in another 6 months. I think this shouldn't be approved by you folks. This is not right. The other reason I want to tell you I don't support it is because nearly 3 years ago you had a study done on your school building utilization by a gentleman who was nationally recognized. And he said, hey, we've got way too many school buildings opened and operating in Nashua, given the capacity of those buildings.
That's irrelevant to this resolution.
Please, don't interrupt me because I'm going to tell you why
I am
it's
going
relevant.
to interrupt you if you get off topic, and I told you that at the beginning.
Well, let
So
me
stay
finish
on
my
topic.
thought. So the topic is this. That report showed that one of the reasons to close schools was because the delivery of special education services is more costly when you're running around to a bunch of underutilized school buildings trying to bring resources, reading specialists, speech therapists, to facilities that are under-resourced, under capacity greatly. You're asking for $3 million to be able to treat a growing population of students without addressing the efficiency of services to those students based on the utilization of your buildings. And I think you got to get real here at the school. The school board isn't real. That board isn't doing its job to look at closing schools. This better be the year that this Board of Aldermen comes in with 2 schools that you're going to close, because that report is 3 years old, and you all just approved $400,000 to Harriman to do a big building study that I went to the last public meeting of the school district to contribute to that. There were 12 people there. And the idea that you're going to spend, 5 years figuring out all the needs of the school and come back, well, that becomes an 8-year process from when the very experienced gentleman came in here and said, you got way too many buildings. The whole time while the population is dropping. Stop making taxpayers fund buildings and facilities and repairs that we don't need, and consolidate so you can handle your special education population much more efficiently, because the $3 million you're asking for will be wasted in this building structure. And I think I had the right to tie those thoughts together. You are far too narrow-minded, Mr. Dowd, and you're cutting people off who want to communicate important points. Please don't continue to do that. Or remove yourself as the chair and let somebody with more civility take over.
Anyone else in opposition?
My name is Paula Johnson. I'm not in opposition, I'm not for this. But being that I sat on the board, at the end of the year, you have this policy. If you don't use it, you lose it. And at the end of the year, there were times we say there were projects that we could get done because we had a surplus at the end. What about if you did it with the school district? Rather than saying this is for future right now, which you really can't determine, what about if we allow them their surplus to take and put it into a fund? So this way they're not asking for more and you're not coming in with a supplemental appropriation that really is not needed at this point. It's for future, just in case. Well, there's a lot of just in cases right now. But I think this is a conversation that really needs to be sat down with the board, with both boards, where special ed is getting out of control because we have more kids in the population that having special needs. We don't want to hurt the kids, but we have to say something has to come under control here. Because when I sat on the board during COVID, when we had to wear all those masks and everything, and parents were screaming at us, I kept asking, because I was a chair of finance and ops, we're adding all these positions under the ESSA funds. What's going to happen when the money dries up? So money's drying up. We have positions. Are we keeping all the positions? And that eats away at the budget where you need it in other areas. So I would think about this very carefully and think about at the end of the year, like Mr. T-Boone said, we're 5 months into a budget. We're looking at future. But is $3 million right now the way we need to go? Maybe $1 million, amend it, and then at the end of the year, before the budget season's up, ask them, what is your surplus? Instead of taking it away, put it in that trust fund so you have it as you're starting to grow it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else in opposition? Seeing no one, testimony in favor? Seeing no one, once again, testimony in opposition. Seeing no one. I'll now close the public hearing on R25-215 at 7:59 PM and open up the public hearing on R25-216 at 7:59 PM relative to the supplemental appropriation of $300,000 of assigned fund balance into anticipated Fund 7090 Resource Center Expendable Trust Fund.
Good evening and thank you. Bobby Bagley, Director for the Division of Public Health and Community Services.
Latanya Musioli, Housing Services Officer for the Division of Public Health and Community Services.
And we're here to speak about the $300,000 for the Resource Center Expendable Trust Fund. For a number of years, we've been looking at interventions or things that need to be put in place here in the city of Nashua to address meeting the needs of our growing unhoused population and other individuals that are in vulnerable settings and in vulnerable situations that need additional support. From some of the research that Latanya has been able to do in looking at other states and also in looking at what's happening here in New Hampshire, what we found as a best practice is to have a resource center that allows for individuals to have their needs met in one setting. Nashua has great community partners. We've been collaborating for a number of years to address the needs of this population of individuals that are unhoused or individuals that are in situations where their housing is unstable. We have had the opportunity with some of our community partners to identify points of contact that are really important for getting these needs addressed. What we found is that when we have a place where individuals can come and it's one place rather than referring them to other places where they could get lost, by setting up a resource center, it allows for their direct service needs to be met in that particular place. What we're looking at is doing this with this amount of money here in this Resource Expendable Trust Fund that will allow for us to set this up, work with our community partners, and be able to meet the needs of our community to address what continues to be a growing issue. In 2023, we saw our unhoused population increase to the point in time count up by 50-something%. We did a mid-year count, and we saw that that number was up even higher. And so we do need to have something in place in regards to the city as a plan to be able to address this issue. I'm going to ask Latanya to speak to other information that she's gathered with some of the opportunities that she's had, not just with the research, but then also working with some of the individuals on the commission that she serves on at the statewide level.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past few years has been street outreach that will significantly be impacted by the recent decision for no camping on public property. So we need a place where we can meet people where they're at and offer these outreach services. We know, as Director Bagley stated, that homelessness is continuing to increase. This problem's only going to get worse given the current cuts to the federal level for the Housing and Urban Development Department. So right now, I currently sit as the Vice Chair of the Greater Nashua Continuum of Care that looks at ending homelessness in our community. And we are anticipating some cuts for our permanent supportive housing opportunities for folks in Nashua. And unfortunately, these are some of the most vulnerable people. So again, it's something that we really need to get behind so that we can make sure that we have something to support folks if they do become unhoused, because we are anticipating that. I also sit on the Governor's Council of Housing Stability, and we are really looking at creating more structure around supporting folks that are experiencing housing instability across the state, and just having a more regional approach to addressing homelessness. We know that our counterparts in Manchester and Concord currently have drop-in centers, and Nashua does not. And given our population in relation to both of those communities, it's something that's completely necessary. As Director Bagley stated, folks are often ready to engage once they feel that they have a place that they can go and once they build relationships with the staff. So if we're not able to meet them on the street to do that, this would give us the opportunity to do so we can have some favorable outcomes to get folks connected to resources such as sometimes folks need an ID, so then they can apply for Social Security benefits. So it might be somebody with a disability that's not able to apply for those benefits because of the barrier of getting the ID. It might be assisting folks into housing. It might be assisting folks in connecting with recovery resources, mental health resources, or other resources that might be available throughout the community. So we're really looking to partner with all of our community nonprofits and other organizations to support individuals at the Resource Center.
All set? So, just for those that haven't read the legislation, we haven't approved this expendable trust fund yet, but this legislation in the write-up says that if that is approved by the Board of Aldermen, which is coming up, then this money would be transferred into that account, but only and if we approve the expendable trust fund. Questions from the board? Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. So, so we recently had the debate about the no camping ordinance, and during that debate, there was talk about where are these people going to go. So, we talked about opening a warming station. The mayor talked about, somebody talked about Elm Street. I think the mayor talked about that the city had an eye on a lease of some other building. So where does that all stand? Do we have a warming center yet? What about these other buildings that were talked about? And is $300,000 enough to do what you need to do?
Yeah, so we did open the warming station on December 1st, which was very timely because we had this lovely snowstorm on the 2nd, which gave an opportunity for people to be inside safely and protected from the elements. Things are going well. We're only on day 4. And things are going very, very well. We started out with 16 individuals on the first night, and last night we're up to 37 individuals. And so the need is definitely there. We do anticipate, with knowing how many individuals were at the encampment, just one encampment on Pine Street Extension, of up to 70 individuals, and there's several other encampments. With the weather being the way that it is, we'll probably see more individuals visiting the warming station. Some folks have found other places to go. Some folks have left the area, but we do anticipate that the warming station will be utilized in the way that we anticipated for this year. As you mentioned, with the resource center, we are looking into finding a space where we can set this up, and so that is still in the works as of right now.
And just to add for some perspective, last year, our opening week of the warming station, we're at 3 times the amount of people that we had last year. So this is continuing to grow.
All set?
And so my last question was, how did you come up with 300,000, and is that a realistic number to do what we need to do?
Yes, so the 300,000 is based on budgeting for additional staffing support, and so we will need to have at least 2 full-time individuals that will support the community health workers that we have at the division, so that'll offset some of the costs because these folks are already on staff. So we'll be hiring those 2 additional individuals because the resource center would be open 7 days a week. So from 9 to 5, 7 days a week. It also takes into account providing support for our partners. So with our nonprofit organizations, if they have restricted funding, when we ask them to contribute time in a space such as a warming station, if the resource center, and that's not already, we're talking about budgets, if it's not already allocated in their budgets, there may be some additional funding that they're going to need to support sending staff to this particular site. Even then, and it may have to even bring extra staff on as well. And so we're anticipating supporting our partnering organizations as well. Operational costs with regards to having supplies and taking care of maintenance, providing for other things such as coffee and snacks, because again, it's open for that period of time. There's that cost that's included in there as well. Because the resource center is going to be open over the weekends for the period of time that it is, we're also looking at having some type of security staffing with us as well, and we've learned that from the experience that the library is having right now when they are providing additional support for individuals in the community. So between the staffing and the partner costs, that's a little over 140, 170, 200,000 at an annual cost. And then we're also looking at, if you hire individuals, we have to pay benefits, so taxes, FICA, and other things. So that's going to be another $35,000, $40,000 for that. So the total operational cost comes to about $247,000 a year. And then the lease agreement, we're looking at anywhere between 90 to 100,000. And so we're hoping to offset some of that cost with some additional funding, so that 300,000 will get us close to what we need.
Thank you.
Well, is that Alderman Jettie?
Yes, I am.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now open the public hearing on R25-216. Testimony in favor.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I have a couple of questions about this. In general, I understand the need for it, and the $300,000 was just explained as 2 additional staff people plus partners. Do we actually have a location for this resource center? Where is it?
Mayor?
So the city is in negotiations with an owner, but because that deal has not been closed and the terms have not been finalized, I'd rather not discuss that unless it were in a non-public session.
That's totally fine.
But there was a meeting today.
Okay.
Between one of our legal team and the owner.
Good exemption reason for confidentiality. I can appreciate that. Is it a downtown, is it a, this district location? Is this what we're focused on? I don't know if you can say that or not.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this 300,000 just sort of gets you going with a couple staff people, and then I take it there'd be additional spending that needs to happen to actually work an arrangement for this building, leasing it, buying it, or giving it for free. Is that correct? Maybe it'll be free.
I think Ms. Bagley addressed that, but rent is within the 300,000.
Okay, rent is in the 300,000. Okay. All right, I listened to that whole long process of passing those resolutions and moving people out of the encampments. And so I think you do have to move on this. And it was a commitment we made to those people to have resources set up for them. So I think you got to live by it. But I also think that this should have been planned. There was a ball dropped here for us not to realize how bad it had gotten downtown. This all came festered in August, just a couple months after the budget was approved. And, I don't think it's appropriate that this became the emergency issue it did to expend these assigned funds, but it did. And we're here, and I think this is one you got to do.
Anyone else testimony in favor?
Good evening, Paula Johnson again. They were saying that the feds are cutting money, which they really aren't. They're setting up the program differently with HUD. If anybody read it, I will just read you a little bit. Yes, the president is clamping down on homelessness by limiting how HUD monies are spent. Instead of spending 80% on permanent housing for some, he wants more money going to temporary shelters to get people off the streets and into rehab. And I think that's a good plan, and I think that's what needs to be done here with a lot of the homeless people that we've seen, and some of them came and spoke to us over several meetings. We don't look at everything the right way. We closed the encampments, and where did they go? I don't know. I know my friend Ken sent me like a message saying goodbye, He was closing up his tent and he was going from where he lived. So where'd they go? Where'd they move to? So we need to have these shelters. We need to have some type of continuum of care programs that will deliver more homeless funding, and they're talking about $3.9 billion than the previous high that was under the previous administration. I don't want to talk names here. The new policy will serve a wider variety of people, transitional housing services, which we need, the middle-class homeless, non-disabled individuals with a shot at a working-class existence. Because of Housing First influence, America now has only 85,000 units of transitional housing, down from around 200,000 15 years ago. So how do we get the people off the streets, and how do we make them feel that they're worthy and worthwhile to become part of the population? I think this money is worthwhile, but I think there also has to be a bigger plan in place. And if there is money that we can get from the federal government, I think this is a worthwhile thing for federal grants, because it's not just helping one person, it's helping the community that we saw come in here that had no place to go. And so this is something that we should be applying for the grant, and I've said this for a long time. This is where grant money should be going, to helping these people, our homeless people, our veterans, our seniors. And we saw people come before us that owned a business and couldn't afford an apartment, because when you're self-employed, the business always comes before your money. And so I hope we take a good look at this, and I hope that we can get some of this funding. Thank you.
Anyone else testimony in favor?
Bob Keating, 5 Coburn Woods, and member of Granite State Organizing Project. Yeah, I'm speaking in support of this for several reasons. First, appreciating the idea of the $300,000 to direct it to the homeless. I'm speaking in favor of it and in support of the Public Health Department, which I think is doing a tremendous job over a long period of time for the most vulnerable people in our community, certainly amongst the most vulnerable. I do have a word of caution about this is the larger plan that the public health has presented twice, I think is a much better plan in that we're talking about being able to house people. With the resource center, it's a day program, and there's needs in the day, but particularly the issues are at night. That's why with the warming station over and up, I feel better already knowing that that's happened. It's gets colder and colder and colder, and so there really is now a place if people are willing to be sheltered, not housed, but sheltered. So that's good. So the $300,000, I in support of the idea of the resource center in the broader sense, with a lot of discretion to the health department about how to use that. And what I mean by is taking that $300,000, let's say April 15th, not let's say, in April 15th, the warming center is going to close. Where do the people go there at that point? The ordinance is, already in effect for RVs, and that they've given notice on December 1st that they have 15 days to go. We're going to run the whole thing again, that there isn't any place for people to go. So I think about maybe some of that money could be allocated to have Elm Street continue so that people will have a place to go. We won't have to say there isn't a place for people to go. There would be a place for people to go. Secondly, the thrust, as we've heard again and again, is about permanent housing and taking that money, and $9,000 you can house somebody in the city in a studio. So you look at that, that would be over 30 people that could be housed for the year for $300,000. So that's my concern, is the larger plan that the Public Health Department has presented over the last 2 years is a one that goes toward more permanent solutions. Taking $300,000, I think it's, if there's enough money to be allocated, then fine. But given that there's competing issues about how money is going to be used, I think the resource center would be much broader, that it would be more helpful and would have a greater impact about being able to have people at least minimally out of the elements and have a place, and in the larger sense, the efforts that we've continued to make, which is to house people as much as possible. And finally, Bagley and LaTanya spoken about, and Paula Johnson also spoke about, is that we're in the most radical proposal that the HUD has made, which would potentially have 170,000 people who are in housing now in the country, 65 households here in Nashua that would be directly affected. They would lose that housing. So we're looking at a place that any money the city does may have to be directed to preserving the people who are currently in places. And that's what we're looking at. So I think this moving forward is to give as much latitude to say how that money could be expended. That won't solve all of the issues. I think there does need to be a capital project, a significant capital project to address the issue that the Public Health Department has brought forth to be able to have the capacity to house people. So 300,000, I could be 30 people.
So so you're aware, we're establishing 2 expendable trust funds, one that can be funded by city funding, the other one by public funds.
Right.
And that will continue.
Right.
And that money doesn't expire at the end of the year. It goes on if there's any money left in the account.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that public health will be actively looking at that and other sources of income.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the flexibility that's being shown in our response. I think that's, that's good. So thank you.
Any other testimony in favor?
Hi, how are you? My name is Tonya Nisley. I am part of the Grand Estate also. I'm a resident council member, very active member in the community. Although I am in favor of a resource center, I would have to ask, how is that going to help anybody have a place to sleep? Unless we're putting some bedrooms or some small apartments in this resource center, all it's doing is going to give them another gathering space to get information, only to be told that there's no place for them to sleep. So again, I'm wondering, with this amazing proposal, why you couldn't include some shelter beds or even some transitional housing within it, especially if it's going to be a new renovation or even a new building. I don't think that we are thinking enough outside of the box to help these people in a way that would actually be life transformative. I feel like the help that we're offering them is very limited, and it will only get them to a certain point before they start reaching roadblock after roadblock. So again, unless some of these fundings are going to go for actual beds or actual apartments or places for somebody to sleep, or even at the resource center, if you had an extra parking lot, so some of the homeless people that are lucky enough to actually have an RV, that they would be able to actually park it legally and actually give them a spot that they could safely, with permission, have their traveling home. I guess that's all I'm have to say, and please think of the human beings that are being affected by this, because again, this is just a small part of what we need to do, because building the housing is the most important thing that we need to do for people, because it's not going to just be the homeless people in the next few years. If all of the funding keeps getting cut, people like me that are in Nashua Housing Authority right now, I'm disabled and I have income-based housing. If all the funding gets cut from the HUD for different housing programs, where is that going to put all of your people that are in the housing authority that are on income-based housing? They're all going to be homeless also, because a large percentage of the human beings that are in that situation that everyone is not thinking about, because they are in a place right now, is they're mostly disabled and marginalized also. So if the funding is cut, you're not just going to have the homeless people that are having their immediate issues. You're going to have all of the other people that are having issues, and we're lucky enough to be barely hanging on in the little bit of supportive systems that we have right now. So again, unless we're increasing the supportive services and we're actually thinking about how we're going to support and help the human beings, we're failing our city. Thank you so much.
Any other one, testimony in favor?
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. So I'm not sure if I'm in favor or opposed, because I had a couple of questions I wanted to bring up to help me understand it better. Maybe the mayor can explain why was there such a large surplus in the 2025 budget?
Well, first, revenues exceeded expectations, the budgeted numbers, and in some cases, expenditures that were budgeted or money that was budgeted was not spent. Now, there's I think, a common misunderstanding regarding the total surplus number, and you're thinking probably of this $46 million number, right? But at the end
I was thinking about the 8 plus the 6, or the 7 plus the 6.
So 8 and 6, it's because the revenue exceeded what was budgeted and because the money wasn't spent in various departments.
Well, that's kind of a general answer. Can you be a little more specific than that? Where did you get additional revenue, for example?
Automobile registration is one source of revenue.
That much? 13 million?
That's one of them. I don't have all the details in front of me.
Can you give an example where the expenditures were less than planned?
School department.
So you talk a lot about how the majority of the budget is union labor. 70%, I think you tossed out. I think one of the aldermen said 90%. So doesn't that mean that a large portion of that surplus came from that?
I think our public hearing is on the resource center.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you didn't have this surplus available to you, then you couldn't try and spend this $300K.
Well, that's correct.
So I was trying to understand why you couldn't budget with a little more fidelity, a little more accurately. You've been doing this since forever. 90% of the budget is union labor. You should be able to estimate that quite accurately.
I mean, I get that you disagree regarding the fact that there should be a surplus, but actually we plan for this to have a surplus every year, and we plan to have a surplus every year on the theory that that's a lot better than a deficit. So that's been going on for decades, and I expect, unless things radically change, it will continue for decades.
Okay. I was going to ask about the 300K and where the 300K, what the basis was for the 300K. But one of the aldermen asked that, and the woman explained it quite well. And I was going to ask about the schedule. So if I understand correctly, the 300K is for 12 months. Is that correct? Okay. So realistically, when could you start? Is it going to happen in this budget season? Very late in the budget season, right? So it's unlikely you're going to spend much of that 300K in this budget season. Isn't that correct?
The budget season goes till July 1st.
Right.
So we're
So
only
by the
about
time-
halfway through, and the
Halfway
idea is
through.
to start it
Start on
as soon as
January
possible.
1. I mean, it could be January 1.
Okay, so you'd have like 4 or 5 months. So you'd spend less than half of this 300K. Is that right? Okay. So if the audience for this resource center is predominantly the people that were just removed from the mill yard, why couldn't you take maybe half of that money and put beds, enclosures in Elm Street? You could do that immediately. You don't have to wait till January. You don't have to rent buildings.
It's
You don't have
actually
to
a
have discussions
deviation
with
from the
tenants.
resolution that's before us.
Excuse me?
I said that's a deviation before.
yes.
This
So-
resolution is to do the expendable
Well, the
trust
resolution-
fund for the supplemental appropriation for the resource center.
Okay, great.
And
So-
that's what public health asked us for. That's what's before us. And anything beyond that, you'd have to discuss with the
Okay,
public health department.
So part of that resolution is 300K, all right? So why couldn't that 300K be 150K, and then take the additional 150K surplus and use it to put beds, partitions, food in Elm Street?
I think they covered what the expenses were going to be.
Let me just briefly, you know, if we're talking about a shelter, we're talking money that is far, far in excess of $300,000. I just will cite the example of the shelter over on Spring Street. Capital cost, $9 million. Operating cost, I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure it exceeds $1 million a year. So this is $300,000. It's not 9 or 10 million, which is what we would need if we were, and that, the $9 million was what, 10 years ago? That's probably $15 or $20 million
That's to
today.
develop a whole new building and infrastructure and all that stuff.
Well, that's what you need for a shelter. You got to have a building and you got to have.
So maybe I'm not suggesting, maybe I'm not suggesting a new
That's
shelter.
it. I mean, this is 300,000. I gave you that answer. That's really all I can say about this at this point.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, testimony in opposition? Seeing none, once again, testimony in favor?
Mr. Chair.
Fred T-Boom, 24 Cheyenne.
Is this
No.
opposition or in favor?
Opposition, sir. I'll tell you why. I'm not so much in opposition of the general intent that it was expressed as a shelter, but you're asking us to take a look at the resolution. Take a look at this resolution. It doesn't say anything about shelters. It doesn't say anything about housing. It says anything about, it says access to essential services. What does that mean? That's point number one. Point number two, a resource center, whatever that is, hasn't even been adopted yet by the Board of Aldermen. And already you're asking for funding. That's totally opposite.
The physical note says that it will only be appropriated if we pass the expendable trust fund at another meeting.
Right.
So
why is
it's not,
this-
so we're getting towards the end of the year. We have to expend this money before the end of the year. And we're trying to get this resource center set up now, not
Right.
later.
My point is, you first passed the resolution for expendable trust fund, for a resource center. You're not at the end of the year. The end of the year is next July. You're talking about the end of the year this year? You're not going to set up a building before the end of this year. There's nothing in this resolution that tells you what you're doing for $300,000.
I think it was explained by Director Bagley.
It might have been explained, but it should be in this resolution. What is explained has no legal formality. That's point number one. Point number two is, where is your budget? She started reading some stuff before you approve a resolution for $300,000. Now, maybe $300,000 is not a lot of money to you, but it is a lot of money to me. I built an entire memorial for less than $300,000. It took years. So where's your budget?
Again, the resolution says that in future years, it will be funded by allocations from the budget for that year.
It says you're taking the money out of the assigned fund balance. Right here in the resolution. And I asked earlier.
This 300,000, yes.
And I asked earlier, 300,000. And I asked earlier, who sets up the assigned fund balance? There was no answer, not the Board of Aldermen.
So the resolution that it's putting this expendable trust fund in place, which isn't part of this, explains that it will be funded by future budgets.
You're
So
appropriating $300,000. It says $300,000.
that's the money that will go into it as soon as we establish the trust fund.
Exactly. And then you can start spending it to rent the building or whatever it is that you plan to do that's not identified in this resolution. So, back again, nothing is specified here. There's no budget presented to you to say whether 300,000 is enough, or some people here said is nowhere near enough. Because it's either nowhere near enough or too much, because you don't know what it is. Except for what people tell you, but that's not legally binding. This would be legally binding. This resolution needs to be tabled until A, you get a budget, B, you approve the resource center, C, identify in approval of the resource center what is exactly that you're trying to do with this money, even though it may not be sufficient or maybe it's too much. You need to table this. The purpose of the supplemental appropriation is to deal with the emergencies. Special spending. You're spending $8 million out of your $30 million just in this evening if you stopped every one of these resolutions. Table it.
Anyone else in opposition? If not, testimony in favor?
Hello, my name is Tori Markowitz, and I live in Manchester, but I work here in Nashua as a community organizer for the Granite State Organizing Project. And I just wanted to echo what some of the folks earlier were saying about the Resource Center being a good step in the right direction, but it not being, $300,000 not being enough money set aside to really deal with the problem of homelessness and for us to create more, we need to create more shelter beds, and more transitional housing and more permanent housing so that the people that we displaced from the encampment at Pine Street do have a place to go. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Testimony in favor?
My name's Tom Sheehan. I live at 1309 The Circle. I will keep my remarks brief, but this is a big problem. I'm all in favor of spending the money, if we have the money, on starting a resource center. I think that's good, but I would also like to see more long-term planning on what to do about the homeless problem. It's really, I feel for the people whose house caught on fire not too recently. And just my first thought was, where are they going to live? So, and where are the people in the encampments going to live? They have to live somewhere. So build a resource center, but it's only 9 to 5. We need more money directed at this problem. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else in favor? Seeing no one else, once again, testimony in opposition? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on R25-216 at 8:38 p.m. And I will open the public hearing on R25-217 at 8:38 p.m. relative to the supplemental appropriation of $220,000 of assigned fund balance into Fund 7080 Police Overtime Expendable Trust Fund. Chief?
Good evening. Kevin Rourke, Chief of Police. This trust fund, asking for $220,000, will cover our overtime for the officers of the Sky Meadow incident. We'll also cover, as the mayor spoke about earlier, businesses having meetings and wanting more attention downtown. So what we did is, we used to have an area, we called it Sector 1, which covers Main Street. We had an officer down there, whether he's on bike, foot, on first and second shift. Due to our being understaffed, we had to take that out and put that officer into a different sector or part of the city to answer calls. So it looks a little brighter. We've hired, we're down to, as of next Tuesday, we'll be down to 12 officers. At this time last year, we're up over 20. We have 7 in the academy right now. We just hired another certified guy. So in March, we'll have 8 officers that will be on the street. So 8 more officers on the street. So we're looking, it's becoming promising here. So this, like I said, this $220,000 will cover the Main Street patrols, 2 officers, first and second shift until the next fiscal year. I'm thinking with those 8 officers getting out of the academy, coming into the patrol division, we'll be able to provide an officer first and second shift full-time down there and not have this problem that we have right now, so.
Okay, thank you. Alderman, and you have any questions? No? Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
I'll now open up testimony in favor of R-25-217.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I'm sorry, I was late in asking to be recognized.
All right, Alderman Jettie.
So, Chief, so could you just explain, so since we're down,
Tuesday will be 12. Right now, it's 14, so we got to get till Tuesday.
okay, so we've been down 14, we're going to be down 12, and then we're going to be down, we're going to be, it's going to go down to 8 in March. So,
No, it'll still be 12. So they're in the academy right now, so we can't put them on the street because they're not fully trained. As they get out of the academy, which is December 16th, they graduate. They then go on a 12-week field training program. So that will bring you to the beginning of March. So then they will be sufficient. They'll be out there by themselves, so.
so the people that are in the academy, we're paying them now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So my question was going to be with the money that we're saving by not having a full staff, which sounds like it's less than what I initially thought. But that money that we're saving, that's not enough to pay for the extra officers that we need downtown and the overtime that we needed for Sky Meadow. There's not enough money there to make up that.
So we do have an ETF account, but with
And what's ETF?
the expandable the trust fund.
Okay.
Okay, so if we were to go and didn't get this supplement appropriation, we're already spend 80% of it, and that's right now. Then I would have to stop Sector 1, which is the downtown route, and the Sky Meadow would go into that. That overtime would go in there. So I've already spent 80%, and we're 5 months in. And if I was a betting man of 30 years of law enforcement, something else is going to happen. So we're going to go over that expendable trust fund. And when we put this money in, if we don't use it, we just carry it over to next year. So we won't be asking you for more money. It's already in there.
Okay, I understand. So 30 years of law enforcement means you're not a betting man, right?
No, I would not bet that. I'm not going to spend another dime on this.
Well, you won the football challenge, so I...
No money
I
involved,
question
though.
that.
No money.
I wish there was.
Skittles.
All set, Alderman Jettie?
Yes, thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? All right. Testimony in favor?
Lori Ortolano, 2023 NACI Loeb winner for First Amendment and 2025 New England First Amendment Coalition Award. We seem to be about titles in here. I have a question for Chief Rourke. Has the downtown patrolling started, and has there been an improvement in our situation downtown with dealing with a lot of these issues that have come up? Can he give us some update on the results?
Yes.
Good. Okay, that's all my question was. I mean, has there been favorable, you're doing it, has there been favorable results?
Yes, there's been a lot of positive feedback from the business owners downtown.
Perfect.
Did you want to address your letter?
Sure. So first thing, the executive director for the Great American Downtown, or now the Downtown Nashua Association, formerly known as Great American Downtown, provided you a letter in support of this legislation because the business owners have seen a very significant difference in behavior in downtown. And so I spoke to at least 8 businesses myself specifically about this, and they were all saying this has done wonders for their customers feeling safe downtown. So just a quick support, and then the letter I think is provided to you.
It's going to be brought in under the budget meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other testimony in favor? Seeing no additional testimony in opposition?
Okay. Fred T-Boone, 24 Cheyenne, at the risk of getting arrested. A question for the chief. How much, chief, did you budget? You're gonna lose weight. You're gonna lose weight with traveling back and forth. How much did you budget in the overtime in the annual budget?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Was it close to this number?
I mean, in the ETF account?
Yeah, the overtime account.
Yeah, it said 200.
About 200,000? And now you want 220,000 more.
Well, I think the question and the answer are, you're talking about different things.
I'm
The
talking about
trust
how
fund is
much-
200. The budget for overtime is over $1 million. It's like $1.2 million or something like that. Oh, the annual budget is what he's asking about.
1.5 million.
Yeah.
So why wasn't that enough? Why do you have to come 5 months into the budget and ask for more money?
I can't predict crime when it happens.
Someone got shot at Sky Meadow.
1.5 million, you have to predict something.
Well, I also testified that we were down last year or at some point over 20 officers.
Yeah, but
You
you're
have to
over.
fill those spots with overtime.
How many of those were missing when the annual budget was adopted? Out of the 20.
Over 20,
And how many are there over now?
14, better.
So if you're getting better, you should need less overtime.
Not true.
Now, that I don't understand.
Well, you can come in my office and I'll show you how it works.
I'm afraid to come to your office.
Well,
If you cover overtime because you don't have enough staff, but now you got more staff, you should need less
I have
overtime.
less staff. I'm 14 short.
Yeah, but you had 20 short
Hey.
last year.
Alderman, former
I
Alderman
understand.
T-Boone, would you please get to the point?
The point is, if the chief was short 20 staff, when you set his annual budget, and you set the overtime at 1.5 million, and now he's at 14, 6 less.
No,
He should need less overtime than he had predicted back. He said,
no.
Correct.
Well,
Like overtime happens.
There's,
I can't predict that.
but you set up a budget, at the annual budget. The purpose of a supplemental budget is for liabilities, as somebody pointed out, not just because you anticipate some additional money you didn't anticipate when you set the annual budget. Unless you totally missed the point of the annual budget, or you try to meet some kind of a criteria by Mayor Dunches, you had no idea that you're going to meet.
Alderman, former Alderman T-Boone,
Yes.
this money is covering what was expended on a major crime, not normal overtime. Normal overtime is used for a number of different items, and I think you need to get familiar with that before you start criticizing how they're spending their money.
It says police overtime, sir.
Yes, for that particular incident.
Well,
So-
and for the
Explain that
downtown
again.
patrols, but I think being down officers doesn't necessarily save money because the sectors get filled with overtime. So
Overtime.
it can cost more to have less officers than to have a full
More
complement.
officers.
It
Right.
costs more to fill a sector with overtime than it does an officer that is on
Exactly.
straight time.
If he predicted 20.
Alderman Clements, do you have
staff,
something you want to add?
There is. I think I can partially answer some of Mr. T-Boone's
That'd be
question.
nice.
I believe, and Mayor, you can correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, you can update me, but we, as a board, went in and authorized, or you as the mayor, with our support, authorized $90,000, I believe, from that overtime for the downtown patrols. Isn't that correct?
I think what happened is the police department, on its own initiative, did a pilot for 2 months, 3 months?
2 months.
2 months to see how it would work without additional funds. And it seemed to have worked well, as you've heard, but to continue it they do not have enough money to fund the next 6 months. So this would cover the additional 6 months, plus what the chief has mentioned regarding the Sky Meadow incident.
Thank you.
So it's the Sky Meadows that caused you to worry about crime that didn't exist? Or you didn't anticipate during the budget setting, in the annual budget? It's the additional crime that worries you.
Mr. T-Boom, can you summarize what you're trying to get across? And
Trying to get across, it's a very simple point. The police chief sets a budget based on his needs for the following year and doing the annual budget process, one you chair.
yes, overtime is not, it's a
overtime
variable.
is
You don't
part of the
understand
budget.
variables?
And we were asking him to do something which he didn't plan for. What he didn't plan for was this two-officer downtown patrol. We're asking him to do that, which was not part of the original budget because it wasn't part of the
Right.
plan. But
So why did he do it?
because we asked him to.
Who asked him to?
The city, the Board of Aldermen, the city, the mayor, we asked him,
Yes.
in order to correct a problem downtown, to assign additional officers. He did that, and it went very well.
Okay. So
He did that
after-
on his own, with his own money.
So
His
let me
own,
understand
meaning the
this.
police department's current budget. But to continue something, a service that was not planned for another 6 months, they need the money, and this would provide that. That's-
Okay, I think I now understand it better. None of this is explained in the resolution. None of it is stated in the resolution. And none, in fact, was very well explained by you. Thank you.
Any testimony in favor? Seeing none, once again, testimony in opposition? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on R-25-217 at 8:52 PM. We'll open the public hearing on R-25-218 at 8:52. And it's relative to the supplemental appropriation of $1,500,000 of assigned fund balance into the Fund 7026 Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. I believe the mayor explained that in great detail, and our new financial team will explain it even more.
I'm a little short for your mic. Good evening, I'm Diane Mulholland. I'm the new treasurer tax collector for the city of Nashua. We are looking for a supplemental appropriation of $1.5 million of assigned fund balance into the Fund 7026 Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. During the fiscal year 26 budget process, we were asking for $5 million to purchase equipment. Being the first year of budgeting SURF, we felt it was more prudent to budget half, $2.5 million, with the anticipation to be able to fund the city's needs. With increased costs of vehicles, we have realized we do not have enough to be able to satisfy the city's purchasing needs without the additional funding. I'll try to answer questions, but I've been here 3 weeks, so.
Any of the aldermen have any questions they'd like to ask? Seeing none, thank you very much and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, I'll now call for testimony in favor of R-25-218. Seeing none, testimony in opposition.
Fred T-Boom, 24 Cheyenne. I have a question for you, whoever spoke just now. You budgeted $2.5 million, but you expected to need more. Why did you not budget at the annual budget what you think you needed, and then let the aldermen decide whether they thought you should have it? Why should you take a budget, as an annual budget, they say, well, we can get a certain percentage increase, et cetera, and then come back in the middle of the year and ask for another $1.5 million? Can you explain your rationale?
Well,
I think
can-
that would probably
it
be best
wasn't,
explained by
it
the
wasn't
mayor.
Ms. Mulholland's budget at all. She wasn't even here. The reason was that if we put an additional 1.5 in the budget, the tax rate would have been nearly 1% higher. So we did it this way to, we thought, to have a favorable impact on the tax rate.
So you tried to lower the tax rate.
If we had budgeted $4 million, the budget would have been $1.5 million higher, which would have mean the tax rate was higher.
Yeah, I understand the tax rate.
We
be
knew we
higher.
needed more than 2.5, but we thought we'd make it up at the end of the year out of the surplus.
I would only say that that's very deceptive. The
It's not
annual budget
deceptive
is
because
supposed
we
to be a full
explained this many,
disclosure.
wait, it is not deceptive because we explained that we were doing this all the way through the budget process. We explained this many times. So it was not deceptive, it was all on the table. In fact, in previous years, we budgeted zero and took it all from surplus. This year, we went to a $2.5 million appropriation with $1.5 million from surplus. It's been many years, discussed many times, every year. So it's
you
not
were-
deceptive.
You were in the school doing a presentation. You said, here's my budget, but I expect to go as a supplement for another 1.5 million.
Yes.
I think we said 2.5 at the time, but yes, we said we would go for a supplemental. I said 2.5, but in fact, we think we can do it for 1.5.
Well, I personally, being pretty familiar with this process, think that's an inappropriate use of supplemental appropriations to try to take money that you expect to spend and not spend it in the annual budget. Because this is still money, reserve or not, that's tax money. You can take a resolution and offset the tax rate with spending from the unassigned fund balance, which I think you took 4 million or some such number. But doing it this way, I don't think is honest. It's not the intent of supplemental appropriations to cover things that you knew during the annual budget you needed, but didn't budget. I think it's a dishonest process.
Further testimony in opposition.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I think Mr. T-Boom makes a point, and I'm only going to say this. I understand what the mayor is saying, that, oh, if we budgeted for the 4 million instead of 2.5, it adds to the tax rate. But at the same time, we had supplemental revenue left, which we used, or supplemental appropriations, to reduce the tax rate. We bought down like $6 million to drop it. There was more you could have dropped it by. So if you budget the way you're supposed to budget, because the need was there at the time you did the budget for, April and May of 2025, then John Sullivan would have come in and said, I don't want 6,000 off, I want 6 million off, take 7.5 million off and reduce it, because you had the surplus to do that. So I think it is very deceptive to say, I'm just going to march in the middle of the year, throw in the extra 1.5, use the supplemental money, do the budgeting the way the budgeting is supposed to be done, and then use all that surplus, buy the tax rate down and buy it down by what you're supposed to. You could have done that because you had the money to buy it down. You just would have added another 1.5 million. The other question I have about these resolutions, because it's difficult for me, I came out, I printed them all, I put them all together. They're so general, like this capital, equipment reserve fund, SURF, for 1.5 million doesn't say what it's used for. None of them say the purpose. Is that done deliberately? Why didn't it say for police cars? Or I would love to know when I'm coming in here what I'm doing this for. Why don't we tell people?
What we do, there's a detailed, there is a schedule of vehicles to be purchased. Individual vehicles are listed in the budget adopted by the Board of Aldermen. And you can see there all of the vehicles that are planned. So part of that commitment was funded through the budget, and this will enable the city to buy all of the budget, the vehicles that are needed and listed in the annual budget.
I'm just going to say, that's very complex for me to try to go back to the budget and the SURF listing to figure out how many police cars are actually being bought for the 1.5 million that go to this. And I don't necessarily know, if I looked at that equipment list, I'd know they were police cars that we were picking, because
Yes,
this...
you would. It says police cars. It says, you know, of individual dump trucks and...
Right, but how do I know from this resolution here, nothing in this resolution legislation says it's police cars?
It doesn't. You'd have to look at the list of equipment that has already been adopted. You would have to do that.
Okay, well, how do I know it wouldn't be a dump truck or something?
Because it's in the list.
It's in the SURF list.
There's a list.
Okay, I understand that. I thought there might be, but since we don't fund it all, my belief is that there might be other pieces of equipment in there that I wouldn't know what I'm picking. So I'm going to tell you, telling me to go to that list to figure out what you wrote here is very difficult. It's just not a reasonable way to know what I'm coming in to speak to. That's the only point I'm going to make. And I do think there's something to be said with budgeting for what you need, using surplus to buy down the tax rate. You just would have bought it down another 1.5 million, and you could have, because you had the money to do that. Thank you.
Anyone else testimony in opposition? Seeing no one else, testimony in favor?
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. So when you add the $1.5 million, are you still underfunded for the vehicles you need to buy in the remaining 6 or 8 months of the 2026 budget year?
No.
Are you overfunded?
No.
So you have exactly the amount. It's exactly $4 million you plan to spend in the remaining 6 to 8 months.
We will have enough to buy the equipment that is listed, and if there's money left over, it will be used to buy money for next year.
Okay, so you think there's time in this budget year to spend most of that $4 million?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is testimony. Anyone else testimony in favor? Seeing no one, testimony in opposition again. No one? I'll close the public hearing on R-25-218 at 9:02 p.m. And I'll open the public hearing on R-25-219 at 9:02 p.m. The next is R-25-219, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $1,500,000 of assigned fund balance into Fund 6600, Benefits Self-Insurance Fund.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. Some of this has already been covered this evening, especially by the mayor's comments at the opening. Essentially, we will be having our healthcare consultant come in again, as they do annually at the January meeting. I would encourage you all to attend that. That's where we go into more detail. But the story is not going to change. We're continuing to see healthcare costs rise. We're seeing double-digit increases. We are well aware of that. We're not alone in this, as pointed out earlier. We're doing the best we can to mitigate these costs. We do have an obligation to pay for it with our employees, and I'd ask for your favorable consideration of this appropriation this evening. Thank you.
Any of the aldermen have any questions for Director Cummings? Seeing none, I'll now call for testimony in favor of R-25-219.
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. How is this fund typically funded?
So the city, for a long time, has been self-insured. So we do not buy insurance from a commercial carrier, because it's less expensive to just pay it on our own. So we estimate the amount that will be needed for health claims at the beginning of the year, and we put enough money in to cover what we considered, what our consultants tell us is likely, the level of expenses that is likely to arise. But we also keep in mind that we want to make sure there's enough money in the fund to cover expenses, even if they go higher than anticipated at the beginning of the year. And, but your question was, I've forgotten the question now. What was the
I
question?
asked how it's typically funded.
So we typically fund it out of the budget, but expenses are running high, and we want to make sure we've got enough to cover it with hopefully a little bit left over at the end of the year. So so we need this to do that.
Is it partially funded by employee contributions?
Yes. Okay. They pay 20% of the anticipated expenses, plus they have, co-pays and things like that.
Will it still be underfunded to the plan for 2026?
No,
If you add
we
this $1.5 million?
anticipate if we do this, we'll be fine.
Fine.
We could have money left over. We
Could
want to
have.
have money left over.
There's always money left over.
But we just
There's
want to
always
make sure we've got enough. I mean, it can be, anything can happen. One person gets cancer, it could cost $1 million. So you don't know what's going to happen.
But you said you had some kind of consultants that
Yeah, yes, we have
advise as to how much
consultants
you
who
need
are
to
working.
plan.
Yes, definitely. Mr. Cummings can give you all the details, but yes, it's carefully planned.
Okay, so
and
what-
projected based
So
upon.
what would you do next year? What do you do different next year?
Pardon?
What would you do different next year?
I'm not sure we do anything different.
We can
Is there
never
a plan?
tell how many claims you're going to have on
Is there a
health
plan
insurance.
for next year?
We work with a consultant every year
Okay.
to form an estimate as to how much the annual cost will be.
Okay.
And we estimate that, and we budget and charge employees based upon that estimate.
So the consultant wasn't that accurate this year? Is that
Director
correct?
Cummings, would you like to step in?
Excuse me.
Yep, thank you. Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. We are running 100% accurate to plan as of today. Now, the account doesn't necessarily read that because we have some obligations at the first part of the year that makes the account run in the deficit. But when you project it out over a 12-month period, we'd be running 100% to plan. Thank you.
All right. Any other testimony in favor? Seeing none. Testimony in opposition? Seeing none.
Wait, Mr. Chair.
I know you're in a hurry, but next time, don't schedule 10 public hearings in one evening, if you're in a hurry. Now, I'd like to follow up on that last question, in fact. And it's really the same as
Name
the
and
school.
address, please. Name and address.
Fred T-Boom, 24 Cheyenne Drive. Now, the same as the school question, how much did you budget, Mr. Cummings, when you set up the self-insurance fund?
Director Cummings.
Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I'm not exactly sure of the question. I could answer it two ways. You could say that the total budget is about $60-ish million, a little less. Healthcare claims are about 54. The employer portion would be about 35-ish million. Thank you.
No, so how much did you budget for
35.
cities?
35 of city funds.
So the city side would be 35 million, and that would be approximately a 10% increase that was in the budget.
Okay, so 35 million. And you said you were right on plan. I mean, you're 5 months into the year. You're right on plan. Then why do you need another 1.5 million?
Because by the time we get to the end of this year, we won't have a little bit of that surplus that we're talking about needing, and we are trying to accurately fund this plan year over year within the budget and not have it have more than we need set aside in the operational budget.
So the total here is like, the total here is like $60 million.
Yes.
So even if there's a variance of a couple of percent, it's over $1 million extra. So we don't know for sure what's going to happen in the next 7 months. And we just want to make sure we have enough money at the end.
That is not a purpose for the
Well, in
supplemental
your
appropriation.
mind, you've made it clear that that is not a purpose, but
No.
that's not my thinking. So, you know,
For years, Mr. Mayor Donches, years and years and years. Now, I go back all the way to 1993, before I knew there was
Oh, my
even a
God.
city hall. And for years, for
how many years?
dozens of years,
Like, what, is this 19th century or 20th?
18th century, sir.
Okay.
And for years, our supplemental appropriations were less than $1 million. They were only done in absolute necessity. Now you're getting to the point as well, we are 100% on target. There's what, 60 million? But I'd like to have another 1.5 million, just so I won't go over. Who gives a damn?
If we go over, it's bad.
Who gives a damn about doing 1.5 million now?
I
You
don't,
may be 10 million over. Who knows? You set an annual budget and you
we're
stick
not
with
likely
it.
to be 10 over. It's just, we want to make sure if something goes wrong, there's enough money there. We could have a bad case, we don't know for
Hey.
sure.
Lightning could hit this building.
It could.
And it
go
could. And why do we budget for that?
It could.
And,
It could
and
go
Mr.
10
the
million
chairman could have a heart attack. It would be budget for his sign to be changed. Who, where do you stop? It makes no sense, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, it
And
does.
if that's your line of thinking, you shouldn't have been reelected.
We,
Any other testimony in opposition? Seeing no one else, testimony again in favor? Seeing no one, once again, testimony in opposition? Seeing no one. I'll close the public hearing on R-25-219 at 9:11 PM and open the public hearing on R-25-220 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $200,000 for assigned fund balance into Department 194 contingency account 70100 general contingency for the intended purpose of covering expenses to clean up Main Street and the riverfront. Yes.
Liz Hannum, Economic Development Director. So this is another response to some of the things we've seen as a result of our increase in the homeless population or transient population downtown. This solution came out of several meetings with our downtown business owners as well as the board. And we are looking to add this service in addition to existing DPW cleanings downtown. They do once a week street cleanings. This would be additional staff for downtown. We are hoping to start this as soon as possible so that we can see how it works for the first 6 months and appropriate these additional staff in the 27 budget. So we do anticipate additional staff in that the coming budget. But this came up as part of that summertime issues. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the aldermen? Alderman Senate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to be clear, because we've had a dozen meetings or so on this topic, this is not the clean team model. This is just additional public works staff?
For the rest of this fiscal year, yes. Because of our union policy, we couldn't do the same thing that Manchester does. We have to use DPW staff for this work. And so for this year, we are likely going to just use overtime for our existing staff. We don't want to create a position and then if it doesn't get funded in July, have to fire people. So we are using existing staff for the next 6 months, and then we will appropriate for the annual budget at that point.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. I'll now call for testimony in favor of R-25-220. Seeing none. Testimony in opposition to R-25-220.
Fred Teboom, 24 Cheyenne Drive. There's another reason. In the annual budget, you have an item called general contingency. Now, if you got a problem cleaning up Main Street, there's always been a problem cleaning up Main Street. Now, maybe there's a serious, more dirt in Main Street, and there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody part-time to clean it up. This has got nothing to do with funding next year. This is taking money out of the assigned fund balance. Taxpayers' money. Mostly, maybe grant money that didn't get spent. This is not an item for a supplemental appropriation. And I want to say one other thing while I'm at it. Mayor, when's the last time you were at the CAFA report, the Carol Anderson, they call it Combined Annual Financial Report?
That's not part of this resolution, Mr. T. Boom.
It is.
And you know it isn't.
It says assigned fund balance.
Yes.
Who sets up the assigned fund balance?
I think that was asked and answered before.
Yeah, he said Board of Aldermen. That's a wrong answer. If you stopped interrupting me, like interrupted Ortolano, then I would give you the answer. If you read the CAFA report, it gives you the answer. The chief financial officer sets the assigned fund balance. It's not appropriated money. It gets appropriated when this board votes to appropriate the money, for example, to a riverfront cleanup.
But it's based upon the budget the actions that are taken by the Board of Aldermen, but, we could debate that later.
Actions by the Board of Aldermen only take one action.
That's it.
That's called appropriations.
All right.
When it comes to finances.
Once again, testimony in favor? Seeing none. Once again, testimony in opposition? Seeing none. Close the public hearing on R 25-220 at 9:17 p.m. And at 9:17 p.m., we'll open the public hearing on R 25-222 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $325,000 of assigned fund balance into Department 194 contingency, account 70100 general contingency, for the intended purpose of covering community development block grant and lead program expenses due to the federal government shutdown. I believe, is this the one that we are no longer?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. This resolution and supplemental appropriation is no longer necessary with the federal government having been opened up. I will, however, address the next resolution as it's a separate issue.
Before we get there.
Sure.
Barring any objections from any of the aldermen, we will not have the public hearing in this because we're not going to be,
Public hearing. We have to have the public hearing still.
even if we're going to
Yes.
not do it?
Yes.
We haven't done it yet.
Duly noticed.
Yes.
All right. So, testimony in favor? None. Testimony in opposition? None. Testimony in favor again? None. Testimony in opposition? None. I'll now close the public hearing on R 25-222 at 9:18 p.m. And at 9:18 p.m., open up the public hearing on R 25-223 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $95,784.04 of assigned fund balance into grant project activity 1092 FY 2020 lead paint hazard control grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director for the City of Nashua. As many are aware, certainly on this committee, the city has, over the past years, had a lead hazard or lead abatement control grant in place. Currently, we're in the process of implementing a $7.7 million lead hazard control grant. But this resolution actually relates to the city's 2020 $4.9 million lead hazard control grant. Recently, at the end of calendar year 2024, we were going through the closeout process for that 2020 grant. And through a series of negotiations with HUD, who was fully operational at that point in time, a set of expenses were identified related to both lead hazard remediation and other expenses within the grant that HUD was not able to reimburse the city for. And we went back and forth for a series of months, actually beyond the closeout period of the grant. But ultimately, and this goes to actually Alderman O'Brien's question at the beginning of the evening, HUD is adamant that these $95,000 and change of expenses cannot be reimbursed to the city. And again, it's directly related to unit remediation, and again, as part of a $4.9 million grant. But ultimately, these expenses will not be paid by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I hesitate to attribute these as sort of a kind of match to the program because that's not fair. But ultimately, through negotiations with HUD, we are unable to expend these funds using HUD monies and instead need to cover these costs with city funds. I'm happy to answer questions about the specifics, although I will admit that these program expenses that HUD was uncomfortable reimbursing are across both the remediation, personnel, and other expense lines. And they were related specifically to how things were billed to the healthy homes versus lead hazard sides of the grant. And I can try to answer questions as they come up tonight, but at the risk of saying so, it's a bit complex. But ultimately, these expenses do need to be covered. Happy to answer any questions.
Any of the aldermen have any questions for Matt Sullivan? Alderman Jettie?
So when you say these expenses have to be covered, this is 2020, this was 5 years ago? Isn't there a statute of limitations on this?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
the short answer is no. And Alderman Jettie, your question actually raises an even more complicated issue, and that is that these expenses occurred over a period of years and were included with a set of drawdowns. And ultimately, we were not able to draw these monies down in the final closeout period. So it's the answer is no, there's not a statute of limitations. Predominantly, these expenses were at the end of the grant, though, precedent to the closeout period, but towards the end of the grant. So most of them were in the last 3 months of implementation. But again, no, there's not a statute of limitation on the funding.
Thank you.
All set?
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Director Sullivan. I'll now open up the public hearing on R25-2023. Testimony in favor? Seeing none. Testimony in opposition? Oh, boy.
Fred Tebow, 24 Cheyenne. I have a question for Mr. Sullivan. Was that money spent before the grants were received?
Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. Oh, sorry. The monies were not expended precedent to the grant being received. The monies were expended precedent to the specific monies being drawn down from the federal government. The city received the grant back in 2020. These expenses happened approximately between calendar years 23 and 24.
So did you know at that time that the money was not granted? Or did you know you were going over the grant? Or was it just a miscommunication between you and your federal government?
So this is not a case where we overexpended the grant, in fact. And these were simply expenses that were not eligible to be reimbursed. So there was no overexpenditure. We were accurately tracking the budget, overall budget of the grant. But ultimately, in reviewing the expenses, HUD did not feel comfortable reimbursing based on the nature of the expenses. So there was no overexpenditure. We were tracking the grant budget. It was really a matter of whether or not the expenses were valid under HUD's interpretation.
Interpretation.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So the taxpayers to fund the difference?
The answer is yes. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I believe it.
Any other testimony in opposition? Seeing none. Once again, testimony in favor? Seeing none. Once again, testimony in opposition. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on R25-223 at 9:24 p.m. And at 9:24 p.m., we'll open the public hearing on what is our last one, R25-224, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $900,000 of assigned fund balance into capital project activity, Police Department roof repair and replacement. Chief.
Kevin Rourke, Chief of Police, and with me is Project Manager Tim Lemire. I'll try to be more thorough on this one. So, A few months ago, we came and asked for $600,000 for our roof. As you know, our building, if you don't know, it's 2 buildings in one. Back in the 70s, they built one portion of the building, and then in the late 90s, 99, 2000, 2001, they built the other section of the building. So when we came, we thought we'd be able to repair the roof. We started having leaks. We're up to about 9 leaks. It's caused some damage, minor damage in the building, but it's time for a new roof. So we came and asked for $600,000. We thought that would cover it. As we had brought in recon services and did some testing on it, there's some asbestos up there, and Tim can get into the details. That's not my game on the roofs, but so when we realized that, we needed the $900,000 from the surplus to fund it. We think with other buildings going on in the city, we're thinking about $1.5 million will cover the roof, and I think we have to repair the whole roof and go down to the pavement to repair a whole new roof.
Mr. Lemay, do you want to add anything, or you're all set?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I can tell you, being on the joint committee and having 2 schools that had the same kind of roof, that's the issue. It's a stone ballast roof. All the stones have to be taken off the roof. They have to put a whole new membrane down. They also have to check, I believe, they have to check insulation for where the leaks are, make sure that doesn't need to be replaced.
I do have a
Yes.
question. Could we put solar there? We've done it on other buildings.
Again, Tim Lemay, project manager for the project, and I'd say we certainly have not evaluated the roof for that type of structural load. So we would, you know, we could look into something like that, but we have not even considered what type of loading that roof can handle, especially at the age it is and the multi-levels it is. So it'd be something a little bit different that we haven't explored yet to date.
It's usually a load-bearing issue on the roof with the solar, and it would have to be evaluated, and it can be done after the roof's completed. Doesn't have to be done at the same time.
Beforehand? All right. Thank you.
All right. Any questions? Any of the aldermen? Alderman Jettie?
I'm not sure this is germane to this resolution, but the mayor brings up a good point. You know, when you say that, I'm troubled by, maybe I just don't understand, when you say we're going to go ahead and replace the roof and then we'll evaluate it afterwards, if there's some kind of strengthening that could be accomplished while we're up there redoing the roof to accommodate solar, wouldn't that be something that we would?
In order to, I know the answer. I'm going to let Tim Lemire, who's an engineer, answer it for me.
Yeah, sure.
If the roof is not capable of handling the weight load, to fix it would require?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just simply add that it's 2 very different types of projects, where one is a non-structural repair of roof membrane material, and the other would involve potentially a reconstruction of the roof structurally, which if that's the type of project the city's pursuing, it's a completely different project, a structural renovation project that would be certainly probably over a year in design services and millions in construction costs. So there's not really a cost-effective benefit to the city to pivot and do that now and put off a currently leaking roof if
It would not be a cost-benefit analysis. We had to do that at Maine, Dunstall, Birch Hill schools. It can't handle the load, and to make it be able to handle the load was triple the price. You'll never get a payback from solar.
Is that, you agree with that?
I can't speak to the payback one might get from solar specifically, but I would agree with, certainly can agree to the structural points he's making, and I would trust that he's correct about the solar payback.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Alderman Thibodeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So along that line of questioning, I mean, if it's something that we've been contemplating, so I haven't heard no, we're not interested. Now we're just going to throw away $1.5 million.
No. No.
Why not?
This
So
can be-
if
this
the-
can be evaluated afterwards. You can put it, what they're saying is you can put the issue of whether, and Doria Brown's getting up here, but the issue of whether the roof can handle solar can be evaluated after the roof is replaced. And if the roof is strong enough to hold it, you can put solar on top of the new roof, without a big problem. So.
What they have to do is when they take all the rocks off and tear off the membrane and check where the leaks are and everything, they'll be able to see what the structural load capability of the roof is and be able to determine whether it could handle solar. And if it can't, that's when you get into the much larger.
If it can't, I mean, it's just not worth the money. But
Yeah.
if it can, it's worth pursuing it. If it's strong enough, it's worth pursuing the solar alternative.
Yes.
When it comes to solar for city buildings, this is Dory Brown, Energy Manager, I apologize. We are going to release an RFP next year for city buildings that have newer roofs, and we would include this building in the RFP if it has the roof work done. It would help us inform if solar could be done on that building and what the ROI for that work would be for reinforcing the roof. So that would be something that comes later. I wouldn't advise delaying a roof project to reinforce for solar at this time. Thank you.
All the questions asked and answered? All right. So I'll now take testimony in favor of R 25-224. Seeing none, testimony in opposition.
He's back. Okay, first table, don't go away. So I'm trying to figure out why a roof that was estimated to be 600,000 now costs 1.5 million. And you're telling me there's a structural issue. Now, are you a structural engineer?
No, that's not what we're saying.
That's not what you're saying?
No.
Then what are you saying?
Again, Tim Lemire, the owner's project manager for the roof. And as the chief testified, the 600,000 was approved. And during our pre-construction services for hazardous waste testing, there was asbestos discovered. And the roof will be more costly than the original 600,000. And that's the
It
issue.
was the asbestos.
Correct.
Now, that raises another question. You're the project engineer. So did you have anything to do with the proposal by the contractor that did the job?
There is no, we have not estimated this out with construction yet. So we're not out to construction.
So you're talking about?
This is a budget.
Your estimating?
Correct.
It's not a contractor's estimate?
Correct.
So you estimated the additional need for 900,000?
I did not personally estimate the need for
Well, who did?
900,000, but that,
Who did?
I'm not aware.
Well, it's only gotta, I mean, you can start with 600,000, you find asbestos, now you say you need 900,000 more.
What we're aware of
Tell
is,
me how you come up with that.
yeah, what we're aware of is what a commercial roof replacement generally costs 600,000. And now if being in line with other roofs in the city that have been done with asbestos, and as the chairman even recognized with some of the school roofs, we have a general budget of what we're expecting, but it's a budget.
Who set that budget? Who set the additional 900,000? I'll ask it again.
Oh, so we've got a budgeted number from a roofing contractor to give us a general budget that they would expect, but it has not been estimated.
Why don't you do what normal people do?
Wow.
Send out, send out an RFP and say, here's the roof we want built, here's the bill. You guys do ask for money. This is another problem I have with Mayor Dodge's administration. You ask for money before you have any idea what the cost is going to be. The normal process is to get an RFP out, get the return, normal contractors, And then you come before the board and say, I'd like to bond the money, or in this extreme case, which is an extreme case, ask for supplemental appropriation. You don't just go out and bid it with somebody, you don't have an engineering background, right? I do. You don't go out and do that. Mr. Sullivan, you're an engineering background.
No, I'm not.
You're not. Well, I don't know who else here does.
I am.
Who? Yeah, you work for BAE, correct. Now, you go to BAE and find out how they do bidding. You get an RFP out, you find out what the cost is, and you bid. That's one of the reasons we had with Mr. Cummings. His initial
I think
12.5
Director
million
Cummings can add
turned
some
into 25 million. 12.5 million estimate turned into 25 million because you didn't have an RFP. Right?
Director Cummings, do you want to?
If I may.
Yeah, I would like you to address that.
Thank you. Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. So just a couple clarifying points, and I think our OPM, Tim Lemire, isn't necessarily familiar with our processes, and so he may have not used some of the right verbiage when he wanted to express some of his sentiments. Yeah, exactly. So first and foremost, what I believe Mr. Lemire was trying to suggest is we don't have a contract ready yet, but what we do have is we're using the same vendor that is doing the fire roofs right now, and they've actually gone up and done some exploratory work, and they've done the design, and we are at a place now where they gave us a budget estimate, so using his verbiage, to be able to prepare us to be able to come back before you through a finance committee process for the contract, but it's with the understanding that we are using a reputable contractor who we did procure and the fire department is using, and we're going to be utilizing that service, and our policies within our procurement allows us to do this, and that's why we believe it's probably the most efficient way to move forward. Thank you.
The most efficient way to move forward, Mr. Cummings, and you should know this better than anybody with your Performance Arts Center. They're double the price. The most efficient way to do it, and I think the school board would know it, the school special outfit would know that. You go out for an RFP. You write it up exactly the way you want it. You make us consulting how to write the RFP. That I don't doubt. But then you go out and get the cost, and get the cheapest cost. And the best cost, maybe not the cheapest. That's the process. In fact, that's what the procurement policies call for. Not some off-the-wall guy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I appreciate you recognizing me. Just one caveat to that. So that may have been true back in 1985. However, in today's days, our contractors won't hold pricing. And so we work with them very early on in projects to develop budget estimates. And then once we understand what that is, and we know we have the monies readily available through a bona fide source of funds, we will then go through a contracting process. And that's what we always do, and that's what we will do with this as well. Thank you.
And as a final point I'll make, when you go through that process, you get a qualified maximum bid. You know what that is? You certainly know what that is. A maximum qualified estimate. And the schools do it all the time.
Not to exceed.
And you don't go over that. And if you go over that, the contractor is liable for that overage.
Alderman O'Brien and I are on the joint committee with the police commissioners and evaluating, heard all the testimony and all of the estimates from the contractor. The contractor, when they hired him to come take a look at the roof, did all these samples and found out that there was asbestos. The $600,000 was an estimate based on the square footage of the roof and actual potential cost to replace it. It probably would have been less than $600,000 if we came in under budget. And when the roofing contractor went up there and found out there was asbestos, then he gave us an estimate of what it was going to cost to fix it. And based on my experience with two types of similar roofs that were done, I think we can do it for a little less. But you never know. You have all unknown unknowns when you start doing a roof like that. And hopefully it will come in under the money, but I'm pretty sure it will. But you don't know when you're working with a roof that's covered with stones what you're going to find when you take all the stones off. We did that on Franklin Street. We did that on Main Dunstable. I feel very comfortable with the way we're going on this.
So you do not believe in qualified maximum price?
I never said that.
That's what I'm saying. That's the process. Not, I think it's okay, I guess it's okay. Some yo-yo gave me a free estimate, oh, that's okay. You go by estimates from contractors qualified to do a job, you put them on the qualified maximum price, and you move. And that's what the policy in Nashua actually asks for in the procurement specifications.
All right. Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none, testimony in favor again? Seeing none, and once again, testimony in opposition. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on R25-224 at 9:40 PM. Alderman O'Brien, your favorite motion.
Yes, it is. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that the December 4th, 2025 special meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned.
Do you want to handle that, or you want me to handle it?
Go ahead.
All right, the motion on the floor is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 9:41 PM. We're going to go right into budget in about
90 seconds.
2 minutes.
I need the same. 90 seconds.
Take care.
How about a brief break?
You're not on budget, so you can escape.
For example.
I'm like, run.
Run.
Glove resolution.
Hold up.
Expendable trust fund.
For a minute, I was like, where was